You're at a coffee shop, and you watch as a group of friends shares a table, their laughter cutting through the ambient noise. You notice how effortlessly they lean into each other's space, how naturally the conversation flows, how they seem to speak in a language of shared history and inside jokes. And then you look down at your own table. Just you, your phone, your coffee, and a question that's been following you for longer than you'd like to admit. How did everyone else figure this out? This isn't a story about social anxiety, though that might be part of it. This isn't about being an introvert who prefers solitude, though you might tell yourself that sometimes this is about something more specific and more painful, the experience of genuinely having no friends. Not few friends, not friends you've drifted from. No friends. And the psychology behind this experience is far more complex and far more common than most people realize. Here's what's rarely discussed. Millions of people walk through life without a single person they could genuinely call a friend. Not a best friend, not a close friend, not even a casual friend they could text on a random Tuesday. They have coworkers who are friendly, family members they're obligated to, acquaintances who smile and wave, but no friends. Society doesn't quite know what to do with these people. We have language for every other relationship status: single, married, divorced, widowed, dating, complicated. But we have no word for someone who exists outside the social fabric entirely. No word for the person who goes to weddings alone, not because they're single, but because they weren't invited to bring anyone. No word for the adult who hasn't received a "just thinking of you" text in years. The silence around this experience makes it worse. When you're going through a breakup, people understand. When you're dealing with family issues, there's a framework for that. But when you have no friends, there's an unspoken assumption that it must be your fault. That you must be difficult, strange, antisocial, or broken in some fundamental way. But here's what actually happens. Friendlessness rarely starts with a person being unlikable. It usually starts with a moment. Sometimes it's a betrayal that cuts so deep, you can still feel the scar tissue, a best friend who chose someone else, a group that systematically excluded you, a confidence shared that became gossip, a vulnerability weaponized. The brain is an incredibly efficient learning machine. Touch a hot stove once, and you'll hesitate before touching it again. Get burned by trust once, twice, 3 times, and your nervous system starts treating all potential friendships like hot stoves. This isn't a decision. This isn't pessimism or negativity. This is your biology trying to protect you from pain. What starts as protection becomes pattern. You begin to hold back in conversations, not because you don't want to connect, but because some part of you has learned that connection leads to hurt. You start testing people before you trust them, looking for signs they'll eventually leave or betray or disappoint. And the terrible irony is that this very testing, this very guardedness, often ensures that people do leave. You become hyper-aware of social dynamics. You notice everything. Who responds to whose messages first? Who gets invited to what? Whose jokes get laughed at? Whose don't? You see the subtle hierarchies, the unspoken alliances, the performative nature of so much social interaction. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This awareness becomes a curse. You start to wonder if anyone's friendship is authentic. You question whether people actually want you there or if they're just being polite. You analyze every interaction for hidden meanings, every delayed response for signs of disinterest. Your brain becomes a social detective, looking for evidence of what it already suspects, that you don't belong. There's something else that happens when you go long enough without friends. You forget how to be one. Social skills are like any other skill. They require practice, repetition, maintenance. When you don't use them, they atrophy. Conversation becomes difficult. Not because you're not intelligent or don't have interesting things to say, but because the rhythm of back and forth exchange feels foreign. You either say too little worried about oversharing, or too much, desperate to keep the interaction going. You can't find the natural flow that others seem to access effortlessly. You lose the ability to be casual about relationships. When you have friends, individual interactions don't carry massive weight. An awkward conversation is just an awkward conversation. A canceled plan is just a canceled plan. But when you have no friends, every potential friendship feels like your last chance. Every interaction carries the weight of your entire social future. This desperation, invisible though you try to make it, seeps through. Reading social cues becomes harder. Without regular practice, you start missing the subtle signals that guide social interaction. You don't know when someone's politely trying to end a conversation versus genuinely engaged. You can't tell the difference between someone being busy and someone avoiding you. The social language that others speak fluently becomes a dialect you once knew but can barely remember. Something interesting happens when the outer world of relationships shrinks. The inner world expands to fill the space. People without friends develop rich, complex internal lives that most socially connected people never experience. Your thoughts become your primary company. You have full conversations with yourself, imagining scenarios, rehearsing dialogues, creating entire social situations in your mind. These mental simulations become so detailed, so elaborate, that sometimes they feel more real than actual interactions. You become an observer of life rather than a participant. You watch other people's friendships the way someone might watch a nature documentary. Fascinated by behavior patterns you understand intellectually but can't quite replicate, you see how friendships form, how they're maintained, how they end. You understand the theory of connection better than people who practice it daily. This observation gives you a kind of wisdom that's rarely acknowledged. You understand human nature deeply because you've had to study it from the outside. You can predict relationship dynamics, spot toxic patterns, identify authentic connection versus performative friendship. You've become an expert in something you can't actually do yourself. The paradox is crushing. You know what friendship should look like. You know what healthy relationships require. You can give advice to others that actually works, but you can't apply any of it to your own life. It's like being a swim instructor who's afraid of water. Who are you when no one reflects you back? This is the existential question that people without friends face daily. We understand ourselves largely through our relationships. We're the funny one in this group, the responsible one in that group, the creative one, the logical one. These identities are co-created through interaction. When you have no friends, you lose these mirrors. You have to construct an identity entirely from internal resources. Some days you feel interesting, other days boring. Some days you feel worthy of connection, other days convinced you have nothing to offer. Without external confirmation, your sense of self becomes unstable, shifting like sand. You start to wonder if you even exist in any meaningful way, not philosophically, but practically. If no one thinks about you when you're not there, if no one has you saved in their phone under a nickname, if no one has inside jokes with you, if no one would notice if you disappeared for a week, are you even real to anyone besides yourself? This isn't depression, though it might look like it. This is a rational response to objective isolation. You're not catastrophizing. You're accurately assessing that you have no one. The problem isn't your perception. The problem is your reality. Meanwhile, you have to navigate a world that assumes everyone has friends. Every form that asks for an emergency contact. Every event that assumes you'll bring someone. Every conversation that starts with, "What did you do this weekend?" Every holiday that's designed around gathering with people. You become skilled at deflection. You learn to answer questions about your social life in ways that sound full without revealing emptiness. "Oh, I've been busy. I like keeping my weekends low-key. I'm not really a group activities person." These scripts become automatic, little shields you put up to avoid the awkwardness of truth. You decline invitations not because you don't want to go, but because you can't bear the questions. Why didn't you bring anyone? Don't you have friends who'd like this? Are you here alone? Each question is a paper cut. Small but stinging. It's easier to just stay home. Social media becomes a special kind of torture. You see the evidence of everyone else's connections constantly. The birthday posts with dozens of comments from friends, the group trip photos, the 10-year friendiversary celebrations, messy messages on people's walls. You scroll through this evidence of other people's social abundance while your own profile sits quiet. A digital ghost town. You might curate your own social media to hide the truth. You post photos that could imply social activity. You share content that makes you seem engaged with the world. You might even post things at times when it would seem like you were out with people. The performance exhausts you, but the alternative, letting the truth show, feels more dangerous. Here's the cruelest part. People without friends often want friendship more intensely than anyone else. They've tasted its absence so thoroughly that they understand its value in ways that those who've always had it never will. They don't want friends for status or entertainment or convenience. They want friends because they understand, viscerally, what it means to be truly alone. But this hunger coexists with intense fear. Fear of rejection, obviously, but also fear of acceptance. What if someone does want to be your friend? What if you've forgotten how? What if you disappoint them? What if they see through you and realize you're not worth the effort? What if you get close and they leave, confirming your worst fears about yourself? So you exist in this terrible limbo, wanting connection desperately while being terrified of it. Lonely, but pushing people away. Craving friendship while convincing yourself you're fine alone. The cognitive dissonance is maddening. You might set impossible standards for potential friendships. They need to be authentic, deep, understanding, accepting, available, consistent, emotionally intelligent, and a dozen other things. These standards aren't really about finding the right person. They're about protecting yourself from trying and failing again. If no one meets the standard, you never have to risk getting hurt. Let's talk about the mundane ways friendlessness shapes daily life. You eat most meals alone. You celebrate achievements alone or not at all. You process difficult experiences alone. You make decisions without input. You carry your burdens without help. You become intensely self-reliant because you have to be. You learn to fix things yourself, handle your own problems, entertain yourself, manage your own emotions. People might call this independence. And in some ways, it is. But it's not chosen independence. It's forced self-sufficiency masquerading as strength. You develop a complicated relationship with your phone. Sometimes you check it obsessively, hoping for a message that never comes. Other times you ignore it for days because you know there's nothing there. The notifications you do get, work emails, spam, automated alerts, only highlight the absence of personal messages. Your schedule is entirely your own, which sounds liberating until you realize it means no one's time intersects with yours. No one's asking what you're doing Friday. No one's suggesting you grab lunch. No one's inviting you to anything. Your calendar is a blank page that you fill with solo activities and obligations, never collaboration or connection. There are moments when the isolation becomes unbearable. Sometimes it's triggered by something specific. Seeing a group of friends laughing together, being the only person at an event alone, having good news you can't share with anyone, facing a crisis with no one to call. Other times it hits you without warning. You're going through your routine, managing fine, and suddenly you're drowning in loneliness so intense it feels physical. Your chest tightens, your throat closes. You feel the weight of every absent conversation, every unmade plan, every unreturned text, every silent phone call. In these moments, you might reach out, send a text to an old acquaintance, try to reconnect with someone from your past. Join an online community, download a friend-making app. But these attempts often fail, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the desperation shows through. People can sense when someone needs them too much, and it pushes them away. So you retreat again. You tell yourself you're fine alone. You romanticize solitude. You convince yourself that friends are overrated, that people are disappointing, that you're better off without the drama and complication of relationships. Some days you even believe it. Your thinking patterns change when you've been without friends for a long time. You develop what psychologists might call cognitive distortions. But they don't feel like distortions. They feel like truth. You catastrophize small social failures. Someone doesn't respond to your message. They must hate you. An interaction felt awkward? You've ruined any chance of friendship. Someone canceled plans? They never wanted to hang out in the first place. These aren't irrational conclusions when they're based on years of pattern recognition. You personalize everything. Someone in a group conversation doesn't respond to your comment. It's because what you said was stupid or boring. You're not included in plans. It's because people don't want you there. These interpretations become automatic, immediate, unquestioned. You engage in all or nothing thinking. Either someone is a true friend or they're nothing. Either a social interaction goes perfectly or it's a complete failure. Either you're completely accepted or you're completely rejected. The middle ground, where most relationships actually exist, becomes invisible to you. You also mind read constantly. You assume you know what people think of you, and it's never good. You're convinced they find you boring, awkward, too much, too little, weird, forgettable. You don't check these assumptions because you're certain you already know the answer. Underneath all of this sits shame. Deep, pervasive shame that you carry everywhere. Shame that you're an adult who can't manage something as basic as friendship. Shame that you're failing at something humans have done naturally for thousands of years. Shame that there must be something fundamentally wrong with you. This shame keeps you from talking about your situation. You can't admit to anyone that you have no friends because saying it out loud would make the failure too real. So you carry this secret, this fundamental truth about your life, completely alone. The very thing you need help with is the thing you can't ask for help with. The shame also keeps you from being honest in potential friendships. You can't let people know how much you need them. You can't be too eager or too available. You have to pretend you have other friends, other plans, other options. This dishonesty prevents the vulnerability that real friendship requires. You might also feel shame about how you spend your time. The hours scrolling social media, observing other people's lives, the elaborate fantasies about friendships you don't have, the analyzing and reanalyzing of brief social interactions, the crying alone in your apartment, the talking to yourself, the pretending you're texting someone when you're really just opening and closing apps. Perhaps the hardest part is the hope. Hope is supposed to be a good thing, but when you've been disappointed repeatedly, hope becomes painful. Every new person you meet, every potential friendship, carries the weight of all your longing and all your fear. You hope this time will be different. You hope this person will see you, appreciate you, choose you. You hope you'll finally figure out the magic formula that makes friendship work. You hope you've changed enough, grown enough, healed enough to make it work this time. And when it doesn't work out, when the person drifts away or shows they're not interested or turns out to be not who you thought, the disappointment isn't just about this one person. It's about every hope that's been crushed. It's about the mounting evidence that maybe you really are meant to be alone, but you keep hoping anyway. Because what's the alternative? Accepting that this is your permanent reality? That feels like giving up on something fundamental about being human. So you cycle between hope and disappointment, again and again, each cycle leaving you a little more worn down. Yet within this difficult experience, strengths emerge that are rarely acknowledged. People without friends often develop extraordinary empathy. They know what it feels like to be unseen, so they see others more clearly. They notice the person sitting alone. They remember the quiet one in the group. They pick up on loneliness in others that everyone else misses. They develop profound self-knowledge. When you're your only company, you have no choice but to understand yourself deeply. You know your patterns, your triggers, your values. Your authentic preferences separate from social influence. You know who you are. In a way that's uncommon, they become incredibly creative. The internal world they've built contains entire universes. Their imagination has been honed through hours of mental exploration. They think deeply, create richly, understand complexity in ways that constant social stimulation might prevent. They're also intensely independent. They've learned to handle life's challenges alone. They make decisions based on their own judgment. They've developed skills and competencies born from necessity. They're complete people, not half of a partnership or one member of a group. These strengths don't cancel out the pain, but they're real and they're valuable. They're part of who you've become through this experience, even though you never would have chosen this path. Understanding the psychology of people without friends doesn't provide easy answers. It doesn't make the loneliness go away. It doesn't suddenly give you the social skills or confidence or opportunities you lack. But it does offer something important: context. This isn't happening because you're broken. It's happening because of a complex web of circumstances, learned responses, protective mechanisms, and the societal structures. Your brain is doing exactly what brains do: adapting to your environment, trying to keep you safe, responding to the data it's been given. The friendlessness isn't a character flaw. It's a situation, a painful, challenging situation, but a situation nonetheless. And situations, unlike character flaws, can change. For those living this reality, your experience is valid. Your loneliness is real and justified. Your difficulty connecting doesn't mean you're unworthy of connection. The strengths you've developed matter. The depth you've cultivated has value. The person you've become through this difficult journey is someone worth knowing. And for those who have never experienced this, extend curiosity instead of judgment. The person you know who always seems to be alone might be carrying this entire internal landscape you never suspected. The coworker who never mentions weekend plans, the acquaintance who always declines invitations, the relative who seems content with solitude might all be managing a reality more complex and painful than you realize. Friendship, it turns out, isn't as simple as being likable. It's about timing, circumstances, learned patterns, healing from wounds, and having the courage to keep trying despite repeated disappointment. It's about finding people who match your communication style, your values, your availability, your needs. And sometimes, for reasons that have nothing to do with worth, that matching just hasn't happened yet. The yet is important, because while the psychology of friendlessness reveals how people get stuck in this pattern, it also reveals that patterns can shift. Understanding doesn't guarantee change, but it opens the door to possibility. And sometimes, possibility is enough to take the next small step toward the connection your heart has been seeking all along.